In the quiet, picturesque town of Avery, nestled in a lush valley surrounded by sprawling woodlands and crystal-clear lakes, lived Aislinn Devereaux, a young woman whose aspirations were far greater than the boundaries of her small-town life. With silky chestnut hair cascading in soft waves over her slender shoulders and clear emerald eyes that shimmered with quiet determination, she was known throughout the community as a gentle soul with dreams grander than anyone dared to voice. Avery was a peaceful place marked by familiar routines and comforting predictability, yet Aislinn always felt an invisible pull towards the unknown, yearning for adventure and purpose beyond the confines of her humble origins. Having recently graduated from the local university with honors in business and environmental studies, she spent her days working in a quaint bookshop owned by her family, surrounded by well-worn novels and familiar faces, yet continuously restless. Her life, simple and stable, lacked the intensity she had always secretly desired. It seemed fate itself intervened when she stumbled across an online advertisement from Onyx Corporation, an elite global firm that dominated the tech and environmental sector, renowned for innovation, wealth, and power. They were seeking new recruits for their headquarters in the bustling heart of New York City. Without hesitation, Aislinn filled out the application, feeling her heart race with excitement and nervousness as she clicked Submit. Weeks passed without news, and her hope began to fade into the monotony of her days until an email arrived unexpectedly, summoning her for an interview at Onyx Corporation's grand headquarters. Overwhelmed but resolute, Aislinn boarded a flight, leaving her comfortable life behind and entering a world utterly alien to her. She arrived in the glittering city, dazzled and somewhat intimidated by its towering skyscrapers and ceaseless energy. The day of the interview arrived swiftly, and as Aislinn stepped into Onyx Corporation's imposing, sleek glass building, she felt an immediate sense of awe and insignificance. Her nerves fluttered wildly in her chest as she was ushered into a vast conference room decorated with minimalist elegance. It was there, amidst the polished marble and subtle scent of wealth, that she first saw Theodore Cavendish. The CEO of Onyx Corporation was seated at the head of the table, surrounded by his executives. His striking presence instantly captivated her. Tall, commanding, and exuding quiet intensity, Theodore was a man whose reputation preceded him, a fiercely intelligent, notoriously private billionaire whose every move seemed calculated to perfection. Throughout the interview, Theodore remained silently observant, his piercing sapphire eyes rarely leaving Aislinn's face. She spoke earnestly and passionately about her studies, her modest accomplishments, and her deep-seated desire to make a meaningful impact on the world. The executives asked probing, challenging questions. Yet Theodore himself remained silent until the very end, when he suddenly leaned forward, drawing everyone's attention effortlessly. "Miss Devereaux," he began, his voice smooth yet commanding, filling the expansive room with quiet authority. "You come from humble beginnings, yet you speak of ambitions greater than many seasoned professionals I've encountered. Tell me, what makes you believe you can survive and thrive in a place like this, where power and ruthlessness reign supreme?" Aislinn swallowed hard, feeling all eyes fixed upon her. Her heart pounded heavily, yet she held her ground. Meeting his intense gaze without wavering, she answered with a strength she did not fully recognize in herself. "Because ambition born from privilege may fade when tested, Mr. Cavendish, but ambition born from determination and genuine purpose will withstand anything, even the ruthless realities you describe." A thick silence filled the room, tension hanging palpably in the air as Theodore continued to stare at her, his expression unreadable. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, a slight, intrigued smile curved the corners of his lips. He stood abruptly, concluding the meeting with a decisive nod. "Thank you, Miss Devereaux. We'll be in touch shortly." Feeling both relief and uncertainty, Aislinn left the conference room. As she exited, she felt Theodore's gaze lingering on her back, causing an unfamiliar thrill to race down her spine. That night, back in her small hotel room, she replayed their brief interaction repeatedly, uncertain of the outcome, yet aware that something profound had shifted within her. Days later, a formal job offer arrived, personally signed by Theodore Cavendish himself, inviting her to become his personal assistant, a position coveted and envied by many. Elated yet apprehensive, Aislinn knew her life would never be the same. Accepting meant stepping permanently out of her safe haven into the dazzling yet merciless world that Theodore embodied. Yet deep down, She realized that this opportunity was not only a step toward her ambitions, but perhaps a step closer to understanding the mysterious man who had already begun to captivate her in ways she had never imagined possible. Aislenn's transition from the comforting familiarity of Avery into the high-powered atmosphere of Onyx Corporation was jarring, far more intense than she had anticipated. She relocated swiftly to Manhattan, trading serene views of lakes and forests for the glittering cityscape visible from the expansive windows of her modest yet elegant apartment, provided by the company. From dawn till late evening, Aisling found herself deeply entrenched in a world of constant motion, navigating her demanding new role as the personal assistant to Theodore Cavendish. The quiet bookstore days were now distant memories replaced by rigorous schedules, meticulous planning, and the endless stream of phone calls, emails, and high-stakes meetings. Her first days at Onyx were anything but easy. Colleagues openly scrutinized her, whispering their doubts about her abilities and speculating crudely about how she had secured such an enviable position. Office politics were foreign to Iceland, whose earnest sincerity seemed out of place amid the polished, calculated facade maintained by those around her. The air at Onyx felt electric with competition. Each colleague appeared cordial on the surface, but concealed their ambitions behind carefully constructed masks of politeness. This was the kind of ruthless corporate battlefield that Theodore had warned her about, and Iceland soon realized she would have to adapt quickly or face inevitable failure. Yet, despite these challenges, Aislinn found herself increasingly intrigued by the enigmatic man at the center of this world, Theodore Cavendish. He was an imposing figure whose very presence commanded respect, and each interaction between them, though strictly professional, sparked a subtle tension she couldn't ignore. Theodore was meticulously disciplined, authoritative in his decisions, and seldom betrayed emotion. His eyes, sharp, clear blue, and profoundly observant, seemed always to assess, judge, and silently question. Often, during their brief, intense meetings in his lavishly appointed office overlooking the city skyline, she found herself momentarily breathless under his gaze, her heart racing for reasons she dared not fully admit, even to herself. As days turned into weeks, Iceland grew increasingly efficient, earning reluctant admiration from even the most skeptical colleagues. Her competence was undeniable, quickly mastering the intricacies of Theodore's complex daily routine, managing schedules with effortless grace, and deflecting the ever-present challenges from colleagues who tried to undermine her. Yet even her growing confidence could not entirely shield her from the simmering undercurrents of jealousy and hostility, particularly from Victoria Radcliffe, Onyx's ambitious and calculating vice president. Victoria was stunningly elegant, her sophistication perfectly suited to the corporate world's merciless demands. However, behind Victoria's carefully constructed smiles and compliments, hid thinly veiled threats and subtle acts of sabotage intended to unsettle Iceland, clearly perceiving her as an unwelcome intruder. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Iceland found herself alone in the expansive, dimly lit executive floor, still reviewing critical documents for the upcoming shareholder meeting. Engrossed in her work, she barely noticed the quiet opening and closing of the heavy glass door behind her until Theodore's deep voice startled her from her concentration. "Working late again, Miss Devereaux." His voice resonated gently through the silence, stirring an unsettling warmth in her chest. Aislinn quickly rose from her chair, smoothing her skirt nervously as he approached. His tall frame bathed in the soft glow from the city lights filtering through the massive windows. "There's still much to be done, Mr. Cavendish," she replied softly, meeting his gaze with a quiet resolve. Theodore's eyes narrowed slightly, studying her as if attempting to decode a complex puzzle. He stepped closer, subtly breaching the careful professional distance he'd maintained until now, and for a moment, the world around them seemed suspended. "You know, Iceland," Theodore murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, eyes fixed intently on hers. "It's rare to encounter someone who genuinely believes in their purpose here. Most people in this company have long abandoned sincerity for ambition. You intrigue me because you haven't." Aislinn felt her pulse quicken under his penetrating stare, acutely aware of the fragile barrier separating their professional relationship from something far more personal, something more dangerous. She chose her next words carefully, speaking with quiet honesty. "I believe sincerity is a strength, not a weakness. Even here, especially here, authenticity matters more than people admit." Theodore's expression softened ever so slightly, his lips twitching into a faint smile. "Perhaps it does," he conceded softly, and as quickly as the vulnerability had surfaced, it vanished behind his usual unreadable mask. Don't stay too late, Miss Devereaux. The corporate world is demanding enough without sacrificing yourself entirely. With that, he turned and left the room, leaving Iceland standing alone, her heart racing uncontrollably. She knew something had irrevocably shifted between them, an invisible yet tangible connection forged in that brief moment of honesty. As she returned slowly to her work, thoughts of Theodore filled her mind, bringing both excitement and apprehension. Deep down, she realized her life had become intricately entwined with his, pulling her deeper into the exhilarating but dangerous world Theodore inhabited. A world where power and passion, sincerity and deception could either elevate or destroy her. Completely, weeks gradually blended into months as Iceland adjusted fully to her challenging role at Onyx Corporation, growing more confident in navigating the treacherous currents of corporate politics. Her reputation solidified. She became known as someone highly competent yet uniquely sincere, qualities rare in such a competitive environment. Despite her growing acceptance, tensions beneath the surface never completely vanished, particularly those instigated by Victoria Radcliffe, whose subtle hostility continued relentlessly, a constant reminder of the stakes in the game Aislinn was now playing. As the company prepared for a crucial international conference in New York, Theodore Cavendish's schedule became increasingly frantic. Aislinn worked tirelessly beside him, their interactions growing steadily more frequent and intense. Each shared glance and private meeting carried an electric undercurrent, unspoken yet fiercely present, intensifying until it became nearly unbearable. Theodore maintained professional composure outwardly, but privately she noticed subtle shifts. Lingering gazes, softer tones, gestures that hinted at hidden vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. On the eve of the pivotal conference, the company hosted an exclusive gala at a luxurious penthouse venue overlooking the shimmering Manhattan skyline. The event buzzed with powerful guests, wealthy investors, influential entrepreneurs, and elegant socialites, all eager to network and be seen alongside the brilliant and elusive Theodore Cavendish. Aislinn, usually modestly dressed, had been persuaded by her colleagues to attend in a gown chosen specifically for her. A stunning midnight blue satin dress, elegant and sophisticated, yet subtly revealing, accentuating her graceful figure. The transformation drew surprised, appreciative glances from everyone, including Theodore himself, whose gaze lingered just long enough to make her pulse quicken. As the evening progressed, Aislinn found herself momentarily alone near an expansive balcony, escaping the overwhelming energy of the room. The cool night air caressed her flushed skin, offering temporary relief from the intensity inside. She had barely caught her breath when she heard a familiar, deep voice, calm yet unmistakably filled with quiet admiration. "You seem to have captivated the entire room tonight," Theodore remarked softly, joining her by the railing. His gaze fixed on the horizon, but she could feel the intensity emanating from him as surely as if he were looking directly into her eyes. "I'm not used to attention," Aislinn admitted quietly, feeling suddenly shy, acutely aware of his presence mere inches from her own. "You handle it exceptionally well," Theodore continued gently, finally turning to face her, his penetrating eyes searching hers deeply. "Yet I sense you prefer sincerity to admiration." Aislinn took a slow breath, feeling the space between them shrink dramatically as tensions simmered beneath their careful conversation. "Admiration often hides ulterior motives," she responded softly, her voice almost trembling. "I trust sincerity more, even if it's painful." Theodore regarded her intently, his gaze unwavering. Slowly he moved closer, subtly breaching the invisible boundary that had protected their professional relationship for months. His voice lowered, tinged with vulnerability rarely revealed. "Then allow me to be sincere with you, Aislinn. You've disrupted something within me that I believed immune to disruption. It's dangerous, but I can no longer ignore it." Her heart thundered violently in her chest, breath hitching slightly at his admission. She looked up, meeting his gaze with equal vulnerability. "I didn't expect any of this when I came here. It frightens me, but I don't want to ignore it either." With those words, Theodore gently took her hand, his fingers entwining with hers, sending a warm electric charge through her entire being. Slowly, deliberately, he drew her closer, his eyes never leaving hers, silently seeking permission. Breathlessly, she closed the gap between them, surrendering herself to the undeniable pull of attraction. Theodore leaned down, hesitating only a heartbeat before his lips brushed softly against hers. The initial gentle contact deepened almost immediately, igniting a fierce, powerful connection between them that left both breathless, oblivious to the distant sounds of laughter and conversation inside the gala. When they finally parted, Theodore cupped her face gently, his eyes intensely sincere. "We both know this changes everything," he murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of consequence and emotion. "I'm willing to risk it," Iceland whispered, her voice shaking slightly, yet determined, her eyes reflecting unwavering certainty. "Some things are worth the risk." For the rest of the evening, they maintained a careful distance, yet each stolen glance, each brief, secretive smile across the crowded room spoke volumes. Later that night, as she lay awake in her bed, her thoughts raced wildly, replaying every moment of their intimate encounter. Aislinn knew clearly now that her life was irrevocably altered, not just professionally but personally, as Theodore had profoundly entered her world in a way that left her vulnerable, yet deeply exhilarated. As dawn broke over the city skyline, she embraced the uncertainty that lay ahead. Knowing only one thing with absolute clarity, the man who had seemed unreachable, cold, and distant was now intricately connected to her very heart. Their shared moment had ignited something within them both, a passion that was impossible to extinguish, no matter how fierce the storms awaiting them in the ruthless world of power and ambition they inhabited. The days following the gala were filled with an intoxicating mix of excitement, secrecy, and anxiety for Iceland. Her burgeoning relationship with Theodore, though carefully hidden from public view, became the heartbeat of her daily existence. Despite their best efforts, stolen glances in crowded conference rooms and fleeting, meaningful touches when passing documents across polished desks hinted at something far deeper than mere professional courtesy. This clandestine romance filled her with a thrill she'd never experienced, making even the mundane tasks at Onyx feel charged with electric energy. But the secrecy also took its toll, intensifying the strain as she constantly feared discovery. Meanwhile, Victoria Radcliffe, shrewd, ambitious, and increasingly suspicious, watched Iceland closely, sensing that her professional relationship with Theodore was shifting subtly. Victoria had built her career on calculated ruthlessness, and she saw Iceland not just as an irritation, but as a genuine threat to her carefully laid plans. Recognizing Theodore's obvious interest in his new assistant, Victoria meticulously gathered bits of evidence, waiting patiently for the right moment to strike and eliminate her competition. One rainy evening, after finishing a particularly draining board meeting, Aislinn received an urgent anonymous message on her phone. "If you value your future, come to the executive lounge now." Anxiety knotted her stomach, but curiosity compelled her forward. Entering the dimly lit lounge, she found Victoria waiting calmly, poised elegantly at a marble table, her sharp eyes glittering with barely concealed hostility. "Sit down, Aislinn," Victoria said smoothly, her voice calm yet laced with icy menace. Hesitantly, Aislinn obeyed, meeting Victoria's penetrating stare with quiet defiance. Without preamble, Victoria placed an envelope on the table, sliding it slowly across the smooth surface toward Aislinn. Confused and wary, Aislinn opened it, her heart sinking when she saw what lay within. Photographs from the gala. The images captured the unmistakable intimacy between her and Theodore, their bodies close, eyes locked in longing, and finally a damning snapshot of their kiss on the balcony. A chill spread through Aislinn's entire body, her pulse racing in terror and humiliation. She looked up at Victoria, who watched her reaction with a cruel, satisfied smile. "Imagine the scandal," Victoria whispered venomously. "The virtuous Mr. Cavendish entangled in a compromising relationship with his naive assistant. How quickly do you think the board will remove him once these photos reach the media? And your career will end before it ever truly begins." Aislinn's mind raced frantically, realizing the precariousness of their situation. Yet beneath the panic arose a simmering fury. "Why are you doing this, Victoria? What do you gain from ruining us?" she demanded, her voice trembling but firm. Victoria leaned closer, her voice deceptively soft. "Theodore's downfall opens a path I've spent years paving. He's always been untouchable, but you've handed me the perfect weapon. However," she continued, her tone shifting suddenly, I'm not without mercy. Leave Onyx immediately, quietly, and vanish from Theodore's life. Do this, and these pictures disappear forever. Refuse, and you'll both be destroyed. Shaken and devastated, Aislinn fled the lounge, her thoughts spinning chaotically as she desperately considered her options. Hours later, Theodore found her alone in her office, visibly distraught. Seeing her turmoil, he gently closed the door and approached carefully, his eyes filled with concern. Reluctantly, Aislinn revealed Victoria's blackmail, showing him the incriminating photographs, her voice breaking as she expressed her fears about the looming scandal. Theodore remained silent, his expression hardening into steely resolve. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but fierce. I won't let Victoria dictate our lives. If she believes I'll succumb to threats, she's gravely mistaken. Aislinn shook her head, overwhelmed by anxiety and guilt. It isn't just your reputation at stake. It's the entire company's future. I can't let you lose everything because of me. He stepped closer, cupping her face gently, his eyes determined yet filled with a vulnerability he seldom revealed. Aislinn, my life was incomplete before you. This isn't just about us. It's about integrity. I won't surrender to Victoria's manipulations, and neither should you. Trust me, we'll find a way through this together. Though comforted by his words, the ensuing days grew increasingly tense. Victoria, sensing their defiance, leaked hints of the impending scandal to select board members, sparking whispers and speculation throughout the corridors of Onyx. Aislinn's professional reputation quickly eroded, colleagues distancing themselves to protect their own interests. Rumors escalated rapidly, growing impossible to ignore. Realizing the enormous strain on Theodore and recognizing her inability to shield him from the damage, Aislinn reached a heartbreaking decision. Late one evening, alone and devastated, she wrote Theodore a final, poignant letter, expressing her deep love, but insisting she had to leave to protect them both. I will not be the reason your legacy is destroyed, she wrote tearfully. Know that I leave with nothing but profound gratitude and love. Forgive me, but this is the only path I see to safeguard your future. By morning, Aislinn had disappeared, resigning formally from Onyx and leaving New York entirely. Her departure stunned the company, and while Victoria relished her apparent victory, Theodore was quietly devastated. Alone in his expansive office, staring bleakly out over the city skyline, Theodore vowed silently that this was far from over. Victoria had underestimated his resolve and his love. He would reclaim everything she had taken, and above all, he would find Aislinn again, no matter how long it took or what sacrifices had to be made. After leaving New York abruptly, Aislinn returned quietly to her hometown of Avery, broken-hearted and disillusioned, feeling as though she'd lost not only the man she deeply loved, but also a crucial part of herself. Avery remained unchanged, a comforting haven nestled between peaceful lakes and lush forests. But Aislinn was profoundly different, her once clear eyes now clouded by loss and regret. Her parents welcomed her home with warmth and quiet understanding, sensing her sorrow yet respectfully giving her space. Without questions or judgment, they allowed her time to heal, hoping that the familiarity of home could eventually restore the vibrancy stolen from her heart. Days turned into weeks as Aislinn struggled to adapt to her former life, finding comfort in the simple routines, tending to the small family bookstore, quietly arranging shelves, assisting familiar customers, and retreating to the tranquil lakeside in the evenings to reflect on her journey. Yet despite the serene surroundings, Aislinn remained haunted by memories of Theodore, the warmth of his touch, the intensity of his gaze, and the passion they'd briefly shared. Each night, alone in her childhood bedroom, she replayed every precious moment spent with him, wondering constantly if she'd made the right decision by fleeing to protect his reputation and legacy. Meanwhile, Theodore found himself entrenched in turmoil, though externally he remained the powerful, unflappable CEO of Onyx Corporation. Internally, however, he battled relentless grief and rage. He deeply mourned Aislinn's absence, his heart aching each day without her quiet sincerity and unwavering support. His determination to restore justice became an obsession. Carefully, methodically, Theodore began preparing evidence against Victoria Radcliffe, intent on reclaiming not only his company's integrity, but also his personal happiness. He hired a discreet investigator, tasked not only with assembling evidence against Victoria, but also with locating Aislinn, whose sudden disappearance left a gaping void he refused to accept as permanent. One chilly autumn evening, months after her departure from Onyx, Aislinn was closing the bookstore when an unfamiliar figure stepped inside. Tall, professional, and clearly from the city, the man introduced himself quietly as Benjamin Hawthorne, a private investigator hired personally by Theodore Cavendish. Startled, Aislinn's heart raced wildly at the mere mention of Theodore's name, both hopeful and frightened by the implications. Hawthorne calmly explained that Theodore desperately wanted her safe return, and that Onyx Corporation had descended into turmoil following her departure. Victoria's schemes having begun to unravel under Theodore's patient strategy. Reluctantly, yet intrigued by the possibility of redemption, Aislinn agreed to speak privately with Benjamin. Over coffee at a small cafe, she learned the full extent of the chaos Victoria had instigated at Onyx. Documents had been falsified, confidential information leaked, and several executives manipulated, all carefully orchestrated to undermine Theodore and facilitate Victoria's ascent to power. But Theodore, relentless and cunning, had meticulously gathered undeniable evidence of her treachery, determined to expose her publicly at the upcoming shareholders' assembly. Benjamin gently emphasized that Theodore wanted Aislinn to know she was not merely collateral damage in a power struggle. He genuinely loved her and was desperate to have her back in his life. Deeply moved yet hesitant, Aislinn retreated home, spending restless nights agonizing over her next steps. Memories and emotions collided within her, heart aching with yearning for Theodore, yet wary of causing further harm. Ultimately, her love for Theodore, coupled with a renewed determination to reclaim control of her own life, solidified her decision. She would return to New York, not merely as Theodore's lover, but as a woman prepared to face Victoria and publicly stand by Theodore's side. In the following days, Benjamin quietly arranged for her discreet return to the city, allowing her to remain hidden from public scrutiny until the pivotal shareholders' assembly. Theodore, unaware of her impending arrival, faced the boardroom with steely confidence, presenting his meticulously gathered evidence, piece by piece dismantling Victoria's carefully constructed lies. Shock and outrage rippled through the audience as Theodore calmly revealed the depth of Victoria's betrayal. Yet Victoria, defiant and cunning, attempted one final maneuver, accusing Theodore publicly of professional impropriety, citing his improper relationship with Aislinn, implying she had fled out of guilt. Theodore prepared calmly to refute her accusations, but before he could speak, a gentle yet resolute voice interrupted from the back of the assembly hall. Heads turned in astonishment as Aislinn stepped forward, poised and calm, her clear emerald eyes meeting Theodore's stunned gaze with profound love and determination. Approaching the front, she stood confidently beside Theodore, facing Victoria directly. "I left Onyx to protect Theodore and this company from the vicious lies you created," she addressed Victoria firmly, her voice steady yet brimming with quiet strength. "But I refuse to remain a hidden victim of your manipulation any longer. My integrity and Theodore's is something you can never tarnish." Her unexpected appearance and resolute testimony silenced the room. Victoria, caught off guard and visibly panicked, faltered badly, her defenses rapidly crumbling. Theodore, visibly moved, took Aislinn's hand openly, facing the assembled shareholders. "Together we'll rebuild what has been damaged. Onyx will return stronger than ever, not through manipulation or fear, but through integrity and truth." In the chaotic aftermath of the assembly, Victoria was swiftly removed from her position, her credibility shattered. Theodore and Aislinn finally reunited privately, emotions overflowing as Theodore embraced her tightly, murmuring heartfelt apologies and affirmations of his unwavering love. Aislinn clung to him, the familiar strength of his embrace healing wounds she'd carried for months. Her return symbolized not only personal redemption, but a renewed commitment to their shared ideals and passion. Together, standing high above the glittering Manhattan skyline once again, Theodore and Aislinn knew their battle had just begun. But now they faced it united, stronger, and ready to overcome any storm ahead. In the aftermath of Victoria's dramatic fall from grace, Onyx Corporation entered a period of profound transition and renewal. Guided firmly by Theodore's decisive leadership and Aislinn's newfound determination, their relationship, no longer hidden behind closed doors, blossomed openly, bringing a warmth and sincerity previously unseen in the corporate environment. Yet despite Theodore's encouragement, Aislinn chose not to return to her former assistant role. Instead, driven by a passion she had long suppressed, she set out on her own ambitious journey, launching an innovative startup focused on sustainable environmental technologies, something she had dreamed about since her university days. With Theodore's wholehearted support, Iceland founded Ecosphere Innovations, a company aimed at creating practical solutions to environmental challenges. Her transition from Theodore's personal assistant to CEO of her own startup was both thrilling and daunting, thrusting her into a role of authority and responsibility she had never before imagined. She quickly realized how much she'd learned during her time at Onyx, drawing strength from Theodore's guidance while establishing her unique style of leadership, defined by sincerity, collaboration, and integrity. Her initial months were relentless. Iceland worked tirelessly, crafting detailed proposals, pitching to skeptical investors, and assembling a team of passionate, visionary individuals eager to join her cause. Despite her connections to Theodore and Onyx, she deliberately avoided relying too heavily on them, determined to prove herself on her own terms and build a reputation independent from the powerful shadow of her relationship. As word spread of her innovative ideas, investors who previously hesitated began to take her seriously, recognizing her genuine potential and unwavering commitment. Meanwhile, Theodore remained steadfast by her side, offering strategic advice but respecting her fierce independence. Their relationship deepened profoundly, founded not just on love, but mutual admiration and respect. He admired Aislenn's resilience and determination, quietly proud yet conscious of allowing her space to thrive independently. They spent their evenings together, often working side by side, discussing strategies late into the night, their bond growing stronger through shared purpose and mutual ambition. Despite the promising start, Aislinn encountered significant challenges. Her rapid rise brought unwanted scrutiny and criticism from competitors and skeptics within the industry, many suggesting she was merely riding Theodore's coattails. Hurt by the accusations but unwilling to be intimidated, Aislinn responded through action rather than words, driving Ecosphere Innovations forward at an impressive pace. Under her leadership, the startup developed a revolutionary waste-to-energy system, quickly drawing attention for its potential to significantly impact urban sustainability practices. Iceland's breakthrough moment came at a prestigious international sustainability conference in London, where she was invited to present her technology before a global audience of industry leaders, government officials, and renowned environmentalists. The pressure was intense, yet Theodore's presence, quietly supportive in the audience, gave her strength and reassurance. Standing confidently before hundreds, Iceland eloquently presented Ecosphere's innovative solution, demonstrating deep knowledge, passion, and sincerity. Her powerful speech captured the audience, earning enthusiastic applause and immediate international recognition. Overnight, she became a respected voice in sustainability, vindicated fully by her own accomplishments and strength of character. Returning triumphantly to New York, Aislenn's credibility was no longer questioned. Ecosphere flourished rapidly, expanding its influence and securing partnerships with major global companies. However, with success came renewed tension, this time internal, as some of Onyx's board members quietly expressed concern about Theodore's deep involvement with a powerful external entrepreneur. They suggested it could pose future conflicts of interest or undermine his ability to remain impartial. Aware of the growing tension, Theodore and Iceland openly addressed the issue at a decisive Onyx board meeting. Calmly and confidently, Theodore emphasized that his support for Iceland was personal, not professional, and that their relationship did not and would never compromise his leadership or decisions at Onyx. Iceland, standing firmly by his side, reassured the board that Ecosphere would always operate independently, committed firmly to ethical standards that would protect both companies from conflict or compromise. Their transparency and united front quickly diffused the doubts, reassuring the board and further solidifying their professional reputations. In the weeks following, Theodore, impressed and deeply proud of Iceland's extraordinary growth and achievements, proposed a formal collaboration between Onyx and Ecosphere. It was an offer extended not from sentimentality or bias, but grounded in strategic benefit and mutual respect. After careful consideration, Iceland accepted, and together their companies announced a groundbreaking joint initiative, a global project aimed at significantly reducing carbon emissions and improving environmental sustainability practices worldwide. This alliance symbolized not just a professional partnership, but also the unity of their shared vision, marking a significant turning point in both their lives. They were no longer simply lovers who had overcome adversity. They were equal partners, leading from positions of mutual strength, integrity, and genuine respect. In celebrating their collaboration, Theodore took Iceland to a quiet dinner overlooking the New York skyline, reflecting warmly on the challenges they'd faced and the strength they'd found in each other. Holding her hand gently under the soft glow of candlelight, Theodore spoke quietly yet deeply, his voice filled with genuine admiration and love. "You amaze me, Iceland, not just because of your success, but because you've shown me a new way of seeing the world, built on trust, honesty, and courage. I never imagined I'd find someone who could so profoundly impact my heart and my life." Iceland, her eyes shimmering softly in the candlelight, smiled warmly. "Everything I've achieved was inspired by your strength and guidance, Theodore. But what makes it truly meaningful is that I built it with you beside me, not behind or ahead, but always by my side." They sat quietly, sharing a peaceful, profound moment, realizing how much their trials had shaped them individually and together. They had navigated pain, loss, betrayal, and doubt, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Their love had become not only a refuge but also a foundation from which both had grown into powerful leaders, unstoppable in their ambitions, fiercely protective of their integrity, and deeply committed to a shared future that promised both love and legacy. As the groundbreaking collaboration between Onyx and Ecosphere Innovations gained international acclaim, Theodore and Iceland became the focus of intense public attention, hailed by the media as powerfully united leaders pioneering sustainable innovation. Their joint project, a global initiative aimed at reducing carbon emissions and revolutionizing urban sustainability, captivated industries worldwide, placing both companies at the forefront of environmental responsibility and technological advancement. Yet, as their prominence surged, so too did the pressure from external forces. Industry competitors, skeptical investors, and lingering adversaries quietly waiting to exploit any vulnerability. Among these opponents, none was more formidable than Alexander Whitmore, the influential CEO of Viridian Global, a powerful multinational conglomerate known for aggressive tactics and cutthroat competition. Whitmore viewed the rapid rise of Onyx and Ecosphere as a direct threat, particularly enraged by Theodore's growing dominance and the favorable attention Ecosphere had garnered under Iceland's inspiring leadership. Driven by ruthless ambition, Whitmore plotted meticulously to undermine their partnership, using every available resource and ally in his vast network. Under Whitmore's subtle direction, rumors began circulating in influential circles, insinuating improprieties in Onyx's dealings with Ecosphere. False accusations were strategically leaked, suggesting Theodore had manipulated corporate policies to unfairly favor Iceland's company. These allegations, though baseless, rapidly escalated into media speculation, threatening to destabilize both companies' reputations and investor confidence. Iceland felt particularly devastated. She had fought tirelessly to build Ecosphere's success independently, yet now her integrity was being questioned publicly. Determined not to succumb to Whitmore's attacks, Theodore swiftly organized a press conference, standing resolutely beside Iceland to address the damaging claims head-on. With calm authority, Theodore presented transparent records disproving every false allegation, firmly reaffirming their commitment to ethical practices. Iceland, demonstrating remarkable composure despite her emotional turmoil, passionately spoke of Ecosphere's mission and values, reiterating her unwavering dedication to transparency and integrity. Their united front successfully calmed public concern temporarily, but Theodore and Iceland knew Whitmore's attacks would continue unless decisively addressed at their source. Privately, Theodore and Iceland strategized to counter Whitmore's aggression directly. They recognized that this battle was not merely about public perception, but fundamentally about safeguarding the core principles upon which they had built their companies: honesty, innovation, and trust. Through discreet channels, Theodore initiated a thorough investigation into Viridian Global's business practices, suspecting Whitmore's hostility masked deeper unethical conduct. Simultaneously, Iceland rallied her growing industry network, seeking allies willing to publicly support their vision and credibility. Their joint efforts bore fruit quicker than anticipated. Theodore's investigation uncovered disturbing evidence that Whitmore had systematically manipulated environmental impact reports, falsified safety records, and engaged in corporate espionage against rivals. including onyx and ecosphere. With documented proof in hand, Theodore and Iceland meticulously planned their next steps, knowing any misstep could backfire disastrously. Choosing precision over haste, they carefully gathered irrefutable evidence, preparing for a decisive confrontation at an upcoming global business summit in Geneva, an event Whitmore himself was scheduled to headline. In Geneva, under the bright lights of an international audience filled with industry leaders, investors, and media representatives, Whitmore confidently addressed the crowd, delivering a speech boasting Viridian's superior commitment to ethical standards and sustainability. As applause subsided, Theodore calmly stood, surprising the entire assembly, and requested permission to address the gathering. Tension immediately thickened as Whitmore watched warily, sensing danger yet unable to silence Theodore without drawing suspicion. Stepping onto the stage with calm confidence, Theodore methodically presented the gathered audience with damning evidence of Viridian's corruption, detailing falsified documents, manipulated reports, and direct acts of sabotage. Screens behind him illuminated the undeniable proof, capturing the stunned attention of every attendee. Iceland, standing firmly near the stage, projected silent support, her expression one of determined dignity. Whitmore attempted to deny the allegations vehemently, but Theodore's evidence was too compelling, too precise to dismiss. Shocked silence turned quickly into outrage as the audience grasped the magnitude of Whitmore's deception. In the days that followed, Whitmore's empire swiftly unraveled. Regulatory authorities launched formal investigations, investors abandoned Viridian en masse, and his once formidable reputation collapsed spectacularly. Theodore and Iceland returned triumphantly to New York, their integrity publicly vindicated, their bonds strengthened immeasurably by the trials they had endured together. Yet both remained keenly aware of how vulnerable their successes still were, determined now more than ever to protect their hard-won progress. Late one evening, reflecting quietly in Theodore's penthouse overlooking Manhattan, Iceland expressed a newfound clarity born from their intense struggle. "I always believed sincerity and truth would prevail," she said softly, leaning into Theodore's comforting embrace. "But now I understand the true cost of defending those values." Theodore held her gently, his voice resonating deeply. "What we've built together will always face threats. Our strength comes not just from principles, but from knowing we face every challenge together. That is what makes us truly unstoppable." Their experiences had transformed them, uniting their professional ambitions deeply with their personal commitment to each other. In the weeks following their public victory, Theodore surprised Iceland with a private ceremony, attended by close family, trusted friends, and loyal colleagues, formally proposing marriage. His heartfelt proposal was simple yet profound, reflecting the genuine respect and deep love they'd cultivated amid adversity. With quiet tears of joy, Iceland accepted without hesitation, knowing this step represented far more than personal happiness. It symbolized their unbreakable unity, forged through trials, trust, and shared purpose. As Theodore slipped the delicate diamond ring onto her finger, both understood that the battles they had faced had merely been preparation for a future filled with continued challenges. Yet together, united in purpose, passion, and resilience, they knew no obstacle was insurmountable. Their journey had taught them the true meaning of strength, not merely power or ambition, but the courage to protect what truly mattered, their integrity, their dreams, and above all, each other. The quiet elegance of their wedding ceremony reflected the depth of Theodore and Iceland's journey together. A simple yet profoundly meaningful event held in an intimate setting overlooking the tranquil waters of a secluded lakeside retreat near Avery. Friends, family, and trusted colleagues gathered warmly around them, creating an atmosphere rich with sincere emotion and quiet celebration. As Iceland walked gracefully toward Theodore, her eyes shimmering softly in joyful tears, the past struggles and hardships felt distant, now replaced by the pure, profound happiness shining clearly in their exchanged glances. Exchanging vows under a delicate canopy draped in white silk and adorned with fresh blossoms, they spoke softly of the trials and triumphs that had brought them to this moment. Theodore, usually composed and reserved, openly expressed his deep admiration and unwavering devotion to Iceland, his voice gentle yet steady, conveying the powerful sincerity that had always drawn her close. "From the moment I met you, Iceland, your authenticity captivated me, reminding me that power without honesty is empty. You taught me to embrace vulnerability and courage in equal measure. With you by my side, I've found strength I never knew existed. I promise to love and cherish you, always protecting and supporting your dreams as fiercely as my own. Aislinn, moved deeply by his heartfelt words, spoke in return with equal warmth and sincerity, her voice carrying softly but resolutely. Theodore, your strength inspired me, but your love transformed me. You showed me how deeply I could feel, how fiercely I could fight, and how completely I could trust. Together we faced storms, but each challenge only deepened our bond. I promise you my heart, my trust, and my unwavering support today and forever. The gentle applause and emotional tears of their loved ones resonated around them, affirming the significance of their union, not merely as partners in life, but as equals whose profound connection inspired all who witnessed their bond. As Theodore slipped the elegant, delicate wedding band onto her finger, and she placed a matching band on his, their quiet embrace symbolized the culmination of all they had faced and the beginning of their new journey ahead. Returning from their serene retreat to New York, Theodore and Aislinn entered their new married life seamlessly, though now their bond was openly celebrated rather than privately guarded. Both returned energetically to their respective roles, driven by renewed purpose. Ecosphere innovations, under Iceland's visionary leadership, reached extraordinary heights, becoming a global leader in environmental technology, while Theodore guided Onyx Corporation to unprecedented successes. Their unique partnership, admired widely within the corporate world, embodied the harmonious balance between love, ambition, and integrity, inspiring countless others in both their professional and personal lives. As their companies thrived, Theodore and Aislinn leveraged their growing influence for philanthropic ventures, establishing the Cavendish Devereux Foundation, dedicated to global environmental preservation, education, and sustainable development. Together, they personally visited communities worldwide, passionately advocating for change and investing their resources and expertise into projects that transformed lives and ecosystems alike. Their efforts drew international attention and acclaim, but for Theodore and Aislinn, the true reward was witnessing the tangible impact of their work. Lives improved, communities empowered, and hope restored. Yet despite their public successes, their most cherished moments were found privately, quietly together. Theodore, always intensely focused and dedicated, found tranquility in Aislinn's presence, and she, once uncertain and cautious, blossomed fully into a confident leader, finding endless support and encouragement in his steadfast love. They spent peaceful evenings sharing dreams, making plans for the future, and occasionally retreating back to Avery, where their relationship had begun, reconnecting deeply with the simplicity and sincerity that initially brought them together. One evening, as they strolled hand in hand along the lakeside, watching the sun set gently across the tranquil waters, Theodore stopped suddenly, turning to face her fully. His eyes, deeply reflective in the golden twilight, met hers tenderly. "Did you ever imagine when you first left Avery how far we would travel together?" he asked softly, smiling warmly as he brushed a stray lock of her hair behind her ear. Aislinn smiled gently, stepping closer to him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I always dreamed of adventure, Theodore, but you've given me so much more than I ever imagined. Our journey has shown me strength, courage, passion, and above all, love. Everything we've faced brought us here, to this moment, stronger and closer than ever. I wouldn't trade any of it, no matter how difficult, because it brought me to you." Theodore cupped her face gently, drawing her into a tender, lingering kiss that spoke more deeply than words ever could. As the stars appeared softly overhead, they stood quietly, deeply aware of how fully their lives had intertwined, not just professionally, but profoundly and irrevocably at the very core of their beings. Their story was no longer merely about overcoming adversity or achieving greatness. It was about how genuine connection, trust, and courage could elevate life far beyond what either had imagined possible alone. Returning to their bustling life in New York, Theodore and Aislinn remained ever conscious of protecting the powerful balance they had found. They recognized clearly that challenges would continue to arise, tests of strength and integrity never fully absent from their ambitious paths. Yet they faced every obstacle together, secure in their mutual trust, profound respect, and unwavering love. Years passed, their lives enriched deeply by shared accomplishments and personal growth. When news arrived that Iceland was expecting their first child, joy overflowed in quiet moments between them, strengthening their bond even further. Parenthood deepened their commitment to making a meaningful impact on the world, determined more than ever to leave a legacy of sincerity, compassion, and courage for future generations. As they prepared to welcome their child into the world, Theodore and Iceland reflected warmly on their incredible journey together, the struggles, victories, passions, and profound love that had defined their lives. Standing together once more on a quiet balcony overlooking the glittering lights of Manhattan, Theodore held Iceland close, whispering gently into her ear, "Everything we've built started from your strength, your authenticity. You changed my world entirely. No matter what comes next, we'll face it together, as we always have, united." Aislinn, leaning softly against him, closed her eyes peacefully, knowing deeply and confidently in her heart that their extraordinary journey had been just the beginning of an even more profound adventure ahead.